Hello, my love, and welcome to Seen, the podcast that helps you to stop hiding, claim your worth, and build the most vibrant version of your life possible. Thank you so much for being here. Hello, my love, and welcome to Seen. And this week, I'm really excited just to share a little bit of my story and my journey in business so far, because if there's one thing that I love, it's that I can share with my clients just all of the fuck-ups that I've made, all the trial and error to just now show them a new way. And I feel like I've made so many mistakes over the years, and that is beautiful because it now allows me to have that insight and to have just a lot of perspective and to help people avoid just some of the really bad mistakes that I've made, essentially. I've made some good decisions too, of course, but today I just wanted to share a little bit more behind the scenes about my business journey and my journey in general over the last couple of years. So now today I live in Noosa. If you can't already tell, I'm Irish originally, but today I live in Noosa in Australia with my two gorgeous kids, Elsie, who's 3, and my little man, who's 17 months at the moment, with my husband. We just have the most beautiful life here. I work 20 hours a week. All my schedule is just beautiful and free. I've got calls pretty much just one day a week in my schedule. The rest of the time, I'm free-flowing to create and really work on the things that I'm so passionate about and still able to bring in multi-six figures a year. And so this is kind of my ideal as to where I wanted to get to. And it has not been a straight line to get here. I've gone through so many iterations. And, I think it's so easy to look at someone's journey and look at someone's life and just think they must have everything figured out, or, it must be really easy for them. And so you'll soon see that that is not the case. So to take you back, I moved here 12 years ago from Ireland, and I went to art college in Ireland. So I was always very creative and, working in visual communications. But before that, I feel like I had a rocky childhood and moved out when I was 17, excessively was drinking a lot, like blackouts multiple nights a week. Really just in a bit of just not in the best headspace, I would say, in general, for like those late teens to early 20s years. And I think the drinking culture in Ireland was, at the time, it was very easy to sweep my issues under the rug of like, this is just the social norms. And so I did that, and nothing was ever really, looked at, or I didn't even think there was anything really wrong with me or anything like that. Everything was kind of cruisy. Moved to Australia with my now husband. It was a recession at the time in Ireland, and we decided we'd move to Australia. We were just going to travel for a year and see what it was like. So that was great. Got to Australia, got a job in a design studio, and it was always my dream back then to just make art director by the time I was 25. Like, that was just the dream, the goal that I had set out for myself. And so I worked my way up, worked really hard in that studio, and got to the point that I was made art director. And when I got there, I quickly realized this is not what I want at all, because it was not even any more creative. I wasn't doing anything exciting. Instead, I was just being the kind of almost like the HR person for the team and just navigating all of this drama and internal politics in the office, and I hated it. And very quickly that turned into a very, very toxic culture within that organization. And I was bullied, and it was just not a great environment to be working in. And I remember at the time it got to a point, it got so bad that I actually decided, I was quite depressed, to be honest, at the time. I remember I would be with my husband and literally sitting in a restaurant having dinner and just crying, like bawling my eyes out. And I had no idea what was going on, and I didn't know why I was so upset. I knew there was all this stuff happening in work, but it just didn't make sense to me, kind of like how hopeless that I felt at the time, because everything else was great in my life, and looking at a photo of me from back then, you would never think there was anything going wrong. But I just remember feeling so hopeless and just feeling like such a burden to my husband. Like, I felt bad. I was like, you should go do something else and be with something else, because I don't want to be dragging you down. Like, I've just, I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel I don't know how to get through this, and I just don't want to like ruin your life as well as mine. And it kind of got to that point, and then he encouraged me to go and get help, go to therapy. I remember I called my dad at that point because there was one night that I was just so upset and I was so scared of like what was happening with me that I was like, I have to just call him and tell him right away. And I remember it like it was yesterday. He pulled over on the side of the road. I think he was driving with my brother at the time. Pulled over the side of the road, was like, what's going on? And within like a couple of days, he was in Sydney. He brought my sister over and he came to Sydney, took me to the doctor, put me on antidepressants. And, you know, I really resisted that. I did not want to go on antidepressants. I did not want to go see a therapist. I really saw getting help as weak at the time. I was about 22 or so, 22, 23 at this time. And I really saw it as like a weakness. I was like, I shouldn't need help. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not sick. I'm not like, I don't have someone around me that's sick. There's nothing wrong with me. I live a good life. You know, I have all these privileges. Like, I didn't feel worthy almost of having support or help. And I thought that made me weak. And so it was really, I had a lot of resistance, but I knew it came to the point that I was like, I have to get help. And my husband really encouraged me to go and get some help. And that was amazing because what it did was I went into that situation and I was, you know, started with what was going on in work, like all the things in my physical reality, right? Saying, this is the problem, this is the problem. And the therapist listened and took it all in and that was fine. And then she said, and tell me a little bit about your childhood. And I was just like, what has that got to do with anything? And very quickly I realized everything. It has everything to do with everything. And what I realized was that some of the things that were happening in my reality at the time with work were manifestations of similar things that I had gone through in childhood, similar personality types, all of those kind of things, because I really do believe now if you don't kind of work on something and you don't kind of find a solution to something in your life, it's going to start showing up in different ways again and again and again until you can move past it. And so that was just the trigger, like the external situation of the work toxicity and everything. I'm glad that happened to me now. I'm so blessed that that happened to me to make me have gone to get help to actually see the root cause of all these other things that I maybe wouldn't have even looked at before that. And so went and just did a lot. That really was the starting point for me of my spiritual personal development journey, and I've been a fanatic ever since, just, you know, working on myself in so many different ways over the years and really connecting to that inner side, and which, as we all know, is so connected to business, right? You might be listening to this and thinking, wait, what has any of this got to do with business? But it's everything, because you are a reflection of your business. And I went into business at that point because, long story short, I left that job, but I was on a visa. That was why I didn't want to leave it, or I was felt stuck there, because I was on a visa with the company. And so I was like, if I have to leave this company, I have to leave Australia. So I don't want to leave Australia. So that's why I was trying to stick it out to get a different type of visa. Long story short, I left and the company actually reported me to immigration. And immigration found out, and myself and my husband got a week's notice to leave the country. So we're basically like deported. And so I remember we were living in Bondi at the time, and we had 1 week to find someone else to rent our apartment. I had a car. I had to find someone to take that for a bit. I did not know if we would ever get back into the country. So it was like, here is the apartment and the car for maybe forever or maybe for temporary. And so booked a flight to Bali, as you do. Got to Bali, was waiting for the visa to come through. We were waiting on another visa. Nothing happened. And so that actually turned into this travel around the world, because we thought, well, we're in Bali. Why not just keep traveling? We're probably not going to get an opportunity again to like do travel where we've got no responsibilities, etc. And so we went to Vietnam, South America, Central America. We would just go somewhere for a couple of weeks and then look at flights, look at cheap flights, and look at where should we go next. And that became our travel for like 7 months of the year. And in that time, because this was all so sudden, like I had not planned for this in any way, shape or form. Like I had no savings whatsoever. And I was like, shit, I need to like make money somehow while we're gallivanting around the world. So I was freelancing. And at the time I had a food blog, because I'm a massive foodie. And I had a food blog, so I met a lot of people through my food blog, and I was helping other food bloggers design their ebooks, design logos, websites, etc. And so I was just doing that freelance as we traveled. And that was amazing. Then we got back to Ireland. We had an Ireland stop in the trip. And we ended up staying there for 3 months. And the day after I arrived in Ireland, I met a lady called Biddy McLaughlin, which is like the most Irish name ever. I love it. And she's a journalist, a pretty big journalist in Ireland, and a massive foodie as well. And I just met her through my dad. She was a friend of my dad's friend. We met at this garden party, and we both talked about how we love food and how we always wanted to write a cookbook. And literally the next day, we decided, let's write a cookbook. And so I was staying at my dad's in Dublin in a place called Dalkey. It's this beautiful seaside village. And she has a cottage there. And so every day I would take my camera, I would walk up to Biddy's house. She would make me a cup of tea, make me a slice of toast, beautiful Irish soda bread. And we would set out to cook that day, just go see what's fresh in the markets, cook. I would take photos of all the food, then we would eat it all. And we did that for about 2 to 3 months. And that journey was just so healing for me. It was like this like Irish, like maternal, like chef, cook, type of personality in Biddy that was just like so comforting. And she had gone through a lot of her own issues of mental health, which she's very open about. And she really was this soft place to land for me. And it was so comforting in that time to like have this creative outlet and just have someone to really, I was just healing. I was really just healing and figuring out who I was and uncovering like what made me tick and what made me feel all these things and why all of this was happening inside of me. And that was such a beautiful healing journey. And we ended up creating this beautiful book called Behind the Half Door. It went on to be a best-selling book in Ireland. It was in all the major bookstores. We had this amazing launch party. It won an award. It was so beautiful. And it was such an amazing time in my life where everything just flowed. Like, we didn't really try that hard. We met the day after I arrived in Ireland. Things were just falling on our lap. Everything was just in flow. And I really feel like that's such a strong sign from the universe that like you're on the right path and just doing what you're meant to be doing and doors are opening for you. And that was just such a beautiful journey. But when it got to the end of that, we got our visa, came through to get back to Australia, and we went back to Australia. And I was still freelancing that whole time. So I got back to Australia, got back to our apartment in Bondi, and I was inundated with work, with this freelance work. And I was like, okay, I need to get some help here because I cannot keep up with all the work that I had on. And so I just ended up hiring freelancers, bringing people in, and they like our kitchen table turned into this, workbench. And I just had freelancers in there in Bondi each day, and we were just working, and it just really organically grew into my creative agency, which was called Katie Creative. And I know it's not a very creative name for someone that's meant to be creative. I got so much abuse from that. But, it wasn't planned. As I said, this was like me and a freelancer. I did not have a business plan. I was not thinking about what's a good name for an agency. It was just literally putting one foot in front of the other. And that just grew really organically, that business. And it was really fun because I was relatively new to Sydney. I was going to all these networking events. I was just in every single club, forum, whatever you can imagine. Friends would just joke that I would be at the opening of an envelope, and I would. And that's how I got all my leads. That's how I got all my clients. And for that stage of life that I was in, that felt quite easy and flowy as well because I was always out. I was always, meeting people. And so it was quite easy to get leads. What happened, though, is as the company grew and I brought on more and more team, it just grew so quickly. I also acquired a business in there. I acquired another agency, and I just had no fucking idea what I was doing, to be completely honest. I was just on this like rocket ship, and I was just trying to build things as I was going. No idea of my numbers. Every tax bill was a surprise. Nothing was planned. It was a bit of a shit show, to be perfectly honest with you. And what I realized was that I was chaotic on the inside. Like, I'm not going to lie, I was chaotic on the inside because I was still working out just my internal world. And I was just probably hiding in alcohol and going out and meeting people and not really, even though I was doing the inner work and that was still a part of my journey, it was still early days and I had a lot more to do. And I was really recreating a lot of the chaos that I think was also in childhood. There was a lot of kind of chaos, and I was recreating that in my life. And it was just manic. You know, everything as it grew, there was deadlines, urgent things, team politics, team dramas, you know, you name it. I was just trying to keep on top of everything. And, you know, the team grew to we had 12 official team members, but it was almost 30 when you counted all the contractors. We had a fancy office in Double Bay. We were winning awards. We were going to all these amazing events. Everything on the outside looked amazing. But the reality was, it was amazing, but also it was like a fucking explosion waiting to happen, if I'm perfectly honest. And I was just figuring out everything as I went. And also my health really suffered because I was running myself ragged. If I stopped, the business stopped. If I went on a holiday, my laptop was in the seat beside me. My husband, actually, he used to be a teacher. He's now a buyer's agent because he was like, I need to start my own business because I have nothing to do because you're working all the time. That's how much I was working all the time. And yeah, it really would stop if I stopped. And that was fine until it wasn't. And the real turning point for me with that was having my kids, right? So I had my first kid, my first child, and I realized, okay, things need to change. I cannot operate like this anymore, where I am like the glue holding everything together, because as you know, if you've got kids, and especially with a brand new baby, you cannot be on all the time. I was going into labor and I was still sending Loom videos, Loom SOPs to my team, handing over projects. This is the level of crazy we're talking about. And when I came back, I was like, okay, whoa, I need to... Well, first of all, I was really surprised at how much I just was obsessed with Elsie, because I know that might sound a bit bad, but I was never very maternal. I knew I'd obviously love my kids, but I was never one of those people that was like, oh my God, I can't wait to have a baby or anything like that. And so when she came, of course I knew I'd love her, but I was obsessed. You know, I just wanted to be with her all the time. I had so much fun with her. We're talking when I was pregnant, I would take people that had kids and coffee dates and just be like, what do you do with your time though? I don't get it. What do you actually do? Are you not just so bored? I was so delusional. You won't be bored. If you haven't kids yet, don't worry, you will not be bored. Anyway, that was what made me start to consolidate things and really look at my finances, what was profitable, what wasn't. There was not much that was, and you know, very thin margins, so many overheads, and just really start to strip everything back and come back to basics. Even things like tech, I had 50 different apps and platforms going, and just everything was bloated, convoluted, overcomplicated. And I had to strip everything back to basics. So that was kind of the first iteration. Then we decided we would move to Noosa. And how that came about was I had a client in Noosa. We always thought we wanted to move to Noosa. And a client in Sunshine Beach, which we loved, went there for a weekend. And then we were like, why not just do it now? What are we waiting for? And so we were like, okay, let's just go for a year, see how it goes. So we're like, yeah, perfect. Let's go for a year. So I remember it like it was yesterday because I had a lot of surprises waiting for me. My husband and my daughter flew to the Sunshine Coast. I think he was a bit bold. He was off the road at the time. And I had to drive, right? So I drove 14 hours to Noosa or whatever it was, had to stop overnight on the way. It was such an awful drive. And got there, got to this house that I was seeing for the first time ever. There was boxes everywhere. We had just uprooted our whole life, and I was like, oh my God, have we done the right thing? This is crazy. I've left my business in Sydney. We've left everyone. We don't know a soul here in the Sunshine Coast. We've left everyone we know in Sydney. And I was just like, fucking hell, what are we doing? Is this the right thing? This is a lot of change. Next thing, I was feeling a little bit off that evening, and as I was unpacking all the boxes, there was a pregnancy test left over from literally a year or so ago. And I was like, I'll just see if this could be right. So peed on the stick, and I was literally like, fuck. Came down the stairs. My announcement was just literally I was just staring at Neil, and he was like, what's wrong with you? And I was just like, fuck. And he was like, what? And I showed him the stick, and he was just like, oh my God. Because Elsie was only 10 months at the time. She was 10 months, we had just moved. we were just trying to figure our shit out. Like, we were in a new place. Neil had left his job a year ago at the same time we had a new baby. Like, there was just all the things happening. So that led me to, I was still running the agency, but I was really just feeling like I need to be thinking about what my next move is. Like, I'm going to have 2 under 2 in a new place. Like, I'm not in Sydney. What am I doing next? What is going to really light me up? Because I was just over the chaos. I was completely over it. I had no love for it anymore because I was not working in my zone of genius. I was spread so thin. I'd end up hiring people to do all the fun parts, hiring designers, hiring strategists, and I was left being the glorified admin girl, right? So I was like, this is not for me anymore. And so really it was like in those later months of pregnancy, I think it was just after birth, that I had all this time to just really think about what that next trajectory for me was going to be. And I landed on creating a new business and creating a new program called Booked Out Brand to really help other people just like me, other experts, to take their skill set and their knowledge from being in a service-based business and package it up into something that is not trading time for money. I knew I wanted to still help business owners grow their brands, bring in clients, because over the years of my agency, I was working with clients on their branding, their marketing, their strategy, and I could just see that like they needed more. They needed more guidance and more strategic guidance and someone to really support them versus just hiring and outsourcing an agency and not really knowing what to do from like more of a holistic picture of growing their business. You know, hiring agencies can be very compartmentalized. Okay, brain fart, like baby brain, is that still allowed? I've got a 3-year-old and a 17-month-old, so hopefully we're going to call it that. Anyway, that was a niche that I really saw people needed. And so I set out to create this program and the framework. I went back through all of the best performing campaigns that I had run over the years, that I'd run for my clients over the years, that had, you know, I worked with really big coaches, consultants, agency owners that had brought them in leads and clients consistently. Because that was one of the biggest things that I saw for service-based business owners, is that they had to hustle so much because they were always scrambling for leads and clients. Like, it was this revenue roller coaster. And I was like, okay, I need to help people build their brand, because that had always worked for me. And yes, I had done it more physically because I was going to events and networking events and everything like that, but it still really worked for me. And I was like, let's take that to online, build your brand online, package your expertise so it's scalable, and then bring in those consistent leads and clients through one of my top performing funnels that I'd used over the years. And so that's what I did. And it started organically, just, you know, getting people in my community to join. I was getting incredible results, and then started running the same funnel that I teach to bring in leads and clients into my own business. So I teach everything that I do personally. And it's just brought so much ease into my life to have leads and clients just come in on autopilot. And that's what I also teach my clients. Because before, if I looked at a pie chart of like my day, how I spent my day, it would be like 10%, you know, admin, another 10% on team management, another 10% custom quoting, you know, project management, checking Slack, checking ClickUp, crying in the bathroom. Like, it was so spread. Whereas now, because I've built a framework, I'm continuing to perfect that one framework. Instead of starting a new service every second day, I'm perfecting. This is like my life's work. And then because the framework is perfected and I'm giving that to people, it frees up my time, that the time I'm spending one-to-one with people, giving them daily mentorship and support and guidance, is actually on the things that will really move the needle for them, and not the things I'm repeating again and again and again, but really problem solving and helping people apply it specifically to their business. And that's such a beautiful business model for someone like at my stage, and if you're in a similar stage. What I love about it is that it's not an online course. I still work with my clients on a daily basis. I do 2 calls a week, all on the same day, so they're supported on calls. Which is perfect for me. I have a guest coach that comes in on a Thursday, so they get 3 calls a week, but then daily they can just voice note me, send me a message, send me a video in our community, and I will come back to them with a voice note. I'll mark up their documents, I'll record them a video, whatever it might be. But I can do that at my time, so I'm not reliant on having to have an overly scheduled diary, which just does not work for me in this season of life with my kids. But I can still really feel like I know all of my clients, I contribute to them, I'm giving them value, because that is so important to me too. I've got a lot of integrity and I just really want to always be doing something of so much value. And I feel so much more valuable now than I did working like 80-hour work weeks, because now I'm working in my zone of genius and everything is like laser focused. And so it's really divided into 3 parts. I've got client delivery, which is really laser focused, giving strategic feedback, which I love. Then the next part is strategy. So like doing updates to my program, putting in new trainings, coming up with a new masterclass, recording podcasts, things like that. And then I've got another element, which is my brand, creating content, creating videos, creating free resources and value, which is the only way you can grow your brand, right? And I remember back in my agency that all these people used to say, you need to work on your business. You need to be the CEO. You need to be spending 70% of your time at least on sales and marketing. And I always thought, like, are you high? How the hell am I meant to do that? Like, that's literally impossible. And it was because the model that I had. Now, with a model like that, you can, for example, bring in a general manager or bring in a CEO. That would free up some space. So I'm not saying this is the only way to do things. Like, there's a million ways to skin a cat and whatnot. But for me, I didn't even want to have to manage a CEO or manage a general manager, because the buck still stops at you. You're still going to have to get in and get involved, or someone leaves or this and that. Like, I didn't even want any of that, So now I've got the leanest team. It's just me. I've got a VA. I've got my guest coaches that come in, but that's just like, hourly. So it's not like an employee or anything. I've got, little other jobs happening, like someone that edits my videos, for example, or little things like that. But it's such a lean team and it's so easy to manage. And that is why I can spend so much time growing my brand. And you need to do that to grow your brand. If you want to grow your business, you need to do that. But first, it comes back to having the time and the capacity to do that. And that's just physical time, but it's also energetically. Like, if you're burnt out from just like dealing with this shit that's thrown with you from the moment that you wake up to the moment that you go to sleep, are you going to be in like fucking top form to jump on a reel? No, you're absolutely not. And so that's where I just see this so many times with clients or people that I talk to, where they think that they've got a content problem, or they think like it's about outsourcing, it's about like they need to do a LinkedIn funnel, they need to do this, that, the other, and everything like that. But they're all shiny objects. They're all just flashing lights. Like, you need to come back to basics and build a foundation that actually supports you. And it doesn't just have to be coaching. It doesn't just have to be group containers. It can be a service that is scalable. Like, you just strip back your services to one core offering, and it's not all time for money. You can infuse AI, you can infuse a team member, you can infuse all these different things to make sure that the client is getting value, they're getting the result, but the result isn't tied just to time for money and you just like breaking your back doing everything manual and doing everything custom quoted. And so I'm so passionate now about what I do, because I've been through the other side. I've been on like the other side of the spectrum, and it was just so challenging, and it was just so depleting and so draining and just exhausting. And of course, there were good times as well. There were some great times. I loved so many parts of it, but overall it was unsustainable. And I really believe that us women have to find a business model that really sustains us, and that is where everything starts to flourish, because we've got the energy to pour into our clients, to pour into what we do, to pour into ourselves and our own brands. And if you're an expert, it's like, why not start working on you? Hire yourself to be your own VIP client. I'm in branding and marketing. So I'm going to start marketing myself, Why am I like building all these other businesses up and getting them to have like crazy success, which is amazing to do, like doing it for them. That was great to do at the time, but it's still putting so much work in to really not have much reward. Whereas now it's win-win. I can still give people my funnel. I can still guide them and give them so much expertise while building my business to, infinity and beyond. And so I'm so passionate about just helping people find this win-win, like a win for you, a win for your clients, And the other thing that I want to say on all this is that a lot of the journey for me has been around trust and not trying to force the outcomes. Like if I look back to those agency days and I look back to all the hustle and all the grind, like I wasn't being motivated by the right reasons. Like I was probably motivated by punishing myself, self-criticism, not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, having something to prove, needing to earn a certain amount and have a big enough team and have a big office to prove something about myself. I couldn't give a fuck about any of that anymore. I don't care where I work from. I don't care what you think of me working in my living room with my toys scattered around the place. This is fucking amazing for me. I get to hop on and do a podcast and then I go out to my kids. Like, this is my dream. And so I couldn't care less anymore. And I'm still creating a thriving business. And I think having that vision and being that connected to what you do in this really holistic way is so important, where you are just embodying your brand and embodying what you do. It's not putting on this facade and just selling and this is your business and then you're here separately. I think it's all about, connecting to that deeper purpose and really embodying what it is that you teach and what it is that you are helping people with, and you being the living, breathing, walking, talking proof of the pudding, so to speak. And so that was such a great part of the journey for me, because before, even when someone said, pick your niche and narrow down one niche, I found that really hard to do. I was like, I'll sell anyone. I'll sell anyone anything. And that was just the mindset, it was like a scarcity mindset. And so I had all these services and I helped all these different types of people, whereas now I'm very clear that I work with women mostly, and they're usually either moms, or if they're not moms, they maybe are going to want to be a mom in the future, or maybe they don't want kids, but they still just want this beautifully balanced lifestyle. Like they don't want to slave away 80 hours a week. They're service-based businesses. They have some sort of expertise, and they want to turn it into a scalable model that they sell on social media. So see how clear and specific that is? Like it's so specific, and I'm so passionate about why they're the people that I want to work with. And that's just been something that's really, I think, allowed me to grow with so much more ease. Like if we bring it back to that cookbook scenario, it's starting to feel more like that cookbook, where things are just flowing and I'm just not so attached to the outcome. It's like, yes, I've got these big visions, but I'm less attached to how they happen and when they happen. And of course, I've got that drive. I'm pushing myself and I want to make things happen. And I've got so many ambitions and visions and plans. But it's really important to me that I also tune into why I'm doing it, and does that feel right, and does that feel aligned? And I just think that's such a key piece of the puzzle, and it's so hard to quantify, for someone like me that loves to quantify things and look at the data and look at the analytics. But, I remember having campaigns like, obviously I've worked on so many different like top performing campaigns, and sometimes what would happen, for example, if I was running a campaign in my agency, everything would look great on paper. Like the lead cost was great, the call cost was great, we were getting qualified calls, but there was something that wasn't in alignment with the type of person that I was bringing in or the offer, and so it would fall down on that. And so it really does actually feed in quite tangibly to what you're doing. So I think that's been a huge part for me, is like really surrendering that forceful way, and this is a work in progress, by the way, but really trying to surrender that and tune into what's right, and just inviting more space into my life to get downloads and get ideas, and take time to go for a sauna or go for a swim in the water, go to the ocean, sit on the beach, and really allow ideas to drop in and feel guided and really co-create with something bigger. And before I get all woo-woo on you, I really just feel like that's an important note to make, because that has been a huge part of my journey as well. It's just really operating from that grounded level of self-trust and knowing that if something doesn't work out, something better, I'm confident something better is meant for me, or I'm just being steered in a different direction for a reason. So it's like approaching things with curiosity and looking at things as a blessing. Even if you get bad feedback or you get, you lose a sale, it's like, great, that's amazing feedback. How can I think about that so I can make myself even better next time? Why was that client not aligned? Why did that not quite work out? Why was I on that sales call and I had a pit in my stomach because I didn't want to work with that person? Or I'm hoping someone doesn't show up for the call. That was literally me, because it was not aligned. And so it's really this like dual forces of having the right strategy, but also really backing yourself, trusting yourself, and really starting to understand yourself more and what makes you tick and what makes you feel alive, and following those golden nuggets. And so I really hope that was somewhat insightful or relatable, or you got a little download or a nugget or anything like that. I would love to hear if you did. Please send me a message on Instagram at Katy, Kady_OOH. And I'm so excited to see you back here next week.